This episode of Bend the Knee is brought to you by Lord Jason of House Ross, Lady Amanda of House Richardson, Lord Adam, the Young Bull of House Parker, Sir Peter of House Whittingham, the Ghost of Harrenhal, Lord Nelson of the Long Isle, the Mother of Cats, Sir Joshua of House Ross, Lady Kendall of House Taylor, Lady Liz of House Hendricks, Lord Hunter the Foul-Mouthed, Captain of the Guard, Sir Dustin the Rooster Knight, Captain of the Guard, Sir Ron of House Golson, Captain of the Guard, and Lady Amanda, Captain of the Guard.
Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra the Watchful. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we are into chapter 56, Tyrion 7 of Game of Thrones, and many more of your Season 8 Ravens.
Yes, Sir Ezra, it feels great to be back.
Yeah, back into the books, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic.
It has been a little bit, but it is nice to finally return back to the books. Obviously, covering Season 8 was a ton of fun. We gained a ton of new followers. For those of you who are kind of listening and being like, oh, it's the reread, if you're not caught up or you don't feel comfortable, you don't want things spoiled, all you gotta do is go back to previous episodes and you can start all the way from the beginning at episode 1, and we'll see you when you get here. Mm-hmm. But for those of you who are just going to follow along right here, welcome. This is about where we're at. We're at in chapter 56, so we're almost done with the first book. I would say the first book doesn't have as many differences. Once you get to book 2 and 3 is when things split up from the show, and then obviously who knows when books 6 and 7 come out if they're anything like the show.
Yeah.
So kind of a weird position, but that's where we're at, and we're going to keep diving deep into these books.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited. I was just prepping for the show, and I was like, man, oh my gosh, like just thinking about all the little minor characters that pop up, you know? It's just, It's nuts. This mountain clan that we're dealing with here and stuff, it's just a lot of details that we lose in the show, and it's just the nature of the adaptation. But, so yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, and Sir Ezra and I are going to be doing, we posted a schedule in the group of Patreon content that we're going to be doing. We're actually going to be doing an entry-level Patreon episode we don't normally do for that tier, but it's going to be we're calling it a show watcher's guide to the books, and we're just going to start breaking down a lot of these, basically a help guide of who are a lot of these characters, what are some big differences, that should kind of bring everyone up to speed if you just watch the show, because as we do Ravens at the end of the show, we'll be from all over the place. We'll be talking about characters like Val and Lady Stoneheart, and there's some differences with Mance Rayder and Young Griff and John Connington and Septa Lamore, and who are some of these characters I'm unfamiliar with if you're a show watcher. So stay tuned for that, and that should make things quite a bit easier, I would say, an easier entry point.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to mention as well, so that's on patreon.com/bend the knee. The whole schedule, June through December, is up there for each of the tiers, so it's fantastic.
Right.
It's also I really want to sell this because it's so neat the way we've designed it. Like at the $1 tier, we've got the entry, a show watcher's guide to the books, and whatever characters we discuss, we'll then cover in our Green Dream, and then even more so in our Musing. And we're going back to the tourney at Harrenhal, which I think is fantastic. So it's a little bit of history, but it's also it's sort of what we think is going on there. We've got a couple Reddit thoughts and theories on what's happening at the tourney at Harrenhal. So it's fantastic. Just want to get everyone amped and ready to go for that. We're starting that in July. In June, we're kind of introducing a couple just major characters that are not in the shows, like Lady Stoneheart and so on. So should be
it's gonna be a lot of fun. I think it's gonna be great, and I'm really looking forward to doing it.
Yep, absolutely. So
So, all right, Sir Ezra, it has been some time here. Let's see if we can dust off some rust and see exactly what it is here. So let's go ahead and head on over to Small Council. This is kind of where Sir Ezra and I just kind of catch up, maybe talk some channel news. So we're kind of already in it right now. But how have you been, Sir Ezra?
Man, I tell you, the month of May about killed me. The combination of like the end of the school year and the show, we were so busy just with collaborations, and we even had just other things that we're doing on Patreon, other projects, and I am so glad that it's June and I'm ready for summer. So we've got more content. We're just going to keep. I'm back in the books. I'm pouring over the. I'm actually right now. I'm in a Dance of Dragons and I'm reading in Game of Thrones, which is really kind of weird, but it just feels good to be back and getting refreshed. Because I was so consumed with the show. But yeah, overall, doing well, busy, but ready to go, man. Ready for it to be summer and just to kind of relax and get back into the swing of things here with the book club. So how about you, man?
Yeah. Oh, man, I'm good. Same with you. I felt like the entire season 8 for us was a sprint with just the amount of content we were pushing out. Trying to stay up with the news, rewatching the episodes because I watched it and then I would watch it again after it came out. So I felt prepped for our Follow-Up Friday show.
Mm-hmm.
And whew, man, then I went on. Then I had like 2 weddings I went to, and I just got back from San Diego last weekend. So it's been a big sprint. I'm ready for things to kind of calm down a little bit and get back to kind of a normal pace. So it's going to be nice going back to our one reread chapter a week. Right. So we're going to be funneling in some more Ravens to keep up with that because I think everyone really enjoyed Follow-Up Friday. So, and I'm looking forward to the next Ravens Nest, which Sir Ezra and I have been planning. We want to do your season 8, and I guess the series in whole, just kind of reactions. So similar to probably what we did last time where we did that mid-season, we'll just kind of give everyone a segment just to kind of think what they thought and just kind of go round robin from there. But
yeah, I'm actually anxious to hear people's thoughts.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, because that was after the long night that we heard from our bannermen, and I've seen some stuff in the Facebook group, but I really want to know what they think about the ending. So looking forward to getting their voices on the podcast, and that'll probably be what do you think, like mid-June in the next couple.
Probably
weeks.
In the next couple of weeks, yeah, we'll get that organized and set up.
Yeah. Okay. So stay tuned. We'll post something in the group. We were going to have the date by the recording of this, but we just jumped into it, so we'll figure it out.
Right. Okay. So for people that ask us all the time, where can we follow you on social media? You can follow me anywhere on the internet at Super Gainsbros. Sir Ezra, where can people follow you?
Yeah, at Womprat_2M. Check out the Twitter there. We've I had an Instagram. It'll be back later. I don't know, guys. Sometimes I have to take a break from things. So find me on Twitter. Come chat with me there. But yeah, and then Sir Matt, we've also been really busy with another project as well too. I thought we could.
It's true. Yes. Hyperspace Hangout. We're doing a Star Wars podcast. The entire show is going to run to the format that we've been doing Follow-Up Friday. So I think it's going to work really well. Sir Ezra and I did about 8 hours of network work as we call it, since now that we're running 2 shows, and I think it's going really well. And actually, it's the thing I like about it running more than one project is you get to try something on one show and see what you like. And then you can kind of, okay, let's adapt to this because I think our fans here would like this, and I think so.
Right.
There's you get that trial and error, and I think it's kind of cool. So stay tuned. We have quite a bit of things in the work here at Bend the Knee. So I'm really excited for kind of our future here.
Yeah.
Now that the show is over, obviously we'll have the prequel next year. Blood Moon, I think, is so far the working title, but. Yeah, we're still just hoping we can beat out, the Winds of Winter will come up before we get to it. So
yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, could you imagine? Wow. So, all right, cool. So yeah, make sure you check out the projects and stay tuned for more updates here just with us because that Patreon is ramping up and we just have some really fun, cool things planned, and even more collaborations over the summer. Gosh, there's Dragon Con coming up as well, too. So yeah, we'll be digging into all that good stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's go ahead and dive into our reread. The last chapter we read, Sir Ezra, seemed like many weeks ago, was Catelyn 8, where Catelyn and Sir Brendan Tully had met Robb's army at Moat Cailin, accompanied by the host from House Manderley. In private, Catelyn helped Robb refine his war plans and explains to him that they have no option but to win or die. Robb decides to go south in support of Riverrun with a feint down the King's Road to keep Lord Tywin's forces occupied. This week, we are in Tyrion 7, but the last time we were with Tyrion in Tyrion 6, Tyrion and Bronn had decided to make a camp on the high road. Tyrion wanted to make a fire, but Bronn protested that it will bring the Vale Mountains clans down on them. Tyrion sees no point in trying to avoid the clans, and Bronn gives in. As Tyrion plans, the Stone Crows arrive, and Tyrion negotiates an agreement. This week, Tyrion 7... Tyrion meets his father's armies at the inn at the crossroads, escorted by 300 Vale Mountain clansmen. Tyrion and Lord Tywin are discussing their war plans when Tyrion's clansmen burst in, but Tywin handles them coolly. When news arrives that Robb Stark's host is advancing, Tywin offers rich rewards to the clansmen if they fight for him.
Wow. Man, this is it was kind of an interesting chapter for us to jump back in on because things are heating up in that last chapter when we're at Moat Cailin. Robb is in charge. You know, it's on him. Catelyn was really trying to test him, right, and see, you know, you've got a command, you've got a lead, and we actually see some of the effects of that in this chapter right at the very end with Tywin and how he's going to handle the young wolf. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start as I normally do, and I'll read I usually read about the opening paragraph. Challa, daughter of Chick and of the Black Ears, had gone ahead to scout, and it was she who brought back word of the army at the crossroads. By their fires I call them 20,000 strong, she said. Their banners are red with a golden lion. Your father, Bronn asks, or my brother Jaime, Tyrion said. We shall know soon enough.
Man, and to think we're back at the inn at the crossroads, right? Right. We'll have to talk about that more.
So many events seem to go down there.
Yeah.
In the show, it's just like an open field. It's just an encampment where they end up meeting up. But I think it's really cool that in the books it's the inn at the crossroads. That's where Arya and the Hound fight. It's where Tyrion gets captured. It's where Arya and the Hound fight. Oh God, what's his name? How am I blanking on the guy's name right now? But it's where they have the chicken scene, and and it's where Tyrion gets captured. So many events in the books though take place at this inn at the crossroads. So anyway, so they end up going down to the encampment. Tyrion is bringing with him quite a large host of men. I think it's around 300 clansmen he brings with him. From Stone Crows, Moon Brothers, Black Ears, and Burn Men, and those just the seed of the army he hoped to grow. Gunther, son of Gurn, was raising the other clans even now. He wondered what his lord father would make of them in their skins and bits of stolen steel. If truth be told, he did not know what to make of them himself. Was he their commander or their captive? Most of the time, it seemed to be a little of both. It might be best if I rode down alone, he suggested. Best for Tyrion, son of Tywin, said Ulf, who spoke for the Moon Brothers. Shagga glowered, a fearsome sight to see. Shagga, son of Dolf, likes this not. Shagga will go with the boy man, and if the boy man lies, Shagga will chop off his manhood and feed it to the goats. Yes, Tyrion said warily. Shagga, I give you my word as a Lannister, I will return.
Right. Yeah. You know what?
And that's. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say like the fact that there's 300. I kind of forget that there's that many. That's actually a decent amount to be. Yeah. There with Tyrion. In the show, we just see a couple of them kind of hanging out. It looks like there's like 10, I feel like, until later on. But yeah, and that's how their relationship ends up being for I would say the entire time that we
run across them. And it's funny because later when Tyrion takes them to King's Landing when he's when he's Hand of the King, and they're kind of his personal little army.
Yeah, yeah. And I was trying to think of her name. Masha Heddle, right? Is who?
Yes.
The innkeep there that we're going to see, who her red teeth, stained teeth, all that good stuff. So she's dead. Mm-hmm. She is dead, man.
Yeah, and well, a lot of people die at the end of the crossroads. To say the the least.
It's just kind of it's like, man, this is her place. Remember Catelyn, remembered her as a young girl when she showed up there, and she was always kind of she was kind. Tyrion almost how when he sees her, it's like you shouldn't have I mean, all he wanted to do was he just needed a place to stay and some food, sit by the fire, or whatever. I don't really think it's her fault. What's she supposed to do? Catelyn Tully says seize him, take him, and what's she gonna do? I mean,
right.
So, anyways, but she is killed for that.
Yeah.
By Tywin.
Okay, so Tyrion and the clansmen end up riding to the camp, and then we just get a little bit of them. They're just kind of observing, making comments as they're riding. They end up ultimately walking into Tywin Lannister's camp, but I still just have some more quotes here as they ride together. So the Stone Crows rode together, and Chala and Ulf stayed close as well. The Moon Brothers and Blackears had strong bonds between them. Timett, son of Timett, rode alone. Every clan in the Mountains of the Moon feared the Burn Men, who mortified their flesh with fire to prove their courage, roasted babies at their feasts, and even other Burn Men feared Timett, who had put out his own left eye with a white hot knife when he reached the age of manhood. So, I mean, you can imagine this group of, wearing hides and probably rags as they're riding into this full Lannister army encampment here.
I mean, burned men.
And then
they burn their flesh. Like, come on, it's crazy.
And then Tyrion and Bronn having a little bit of a conversation here. I wonder what their king burned off, Tyrion said to Bronn when he heard the tale, grinning. The sellsword had tugged at his crotch, but even Bronn kept a respectful tongue around Timett. If a man was bad enough to put out his own eye, he was unlikely to be gentle to his enemies. Yeah, very, very, very wise. So again, they end up riding to the encampment. Tyrion walks up. Who commands here? He shouted up. The captain was quick to appear and even quicker to give them an escort when he recognized his lord's son. They trotted past blackened fields and burned holdfats down to the riverlands, the Greek ford of the Titan. Tyrion saw no bodies, but the air was full of ravens and carrier crows. There had been fighting here, and recently. They end up riding up, and I believe one of the first people Tyrion sees, he sees Sir Flamet, but he ends up seeing his uncle Kevin as well. Yeah.
When they get in there, so they recognize him, as you say, and take him to see his father, right? Yeah. So
and this is actually the first time we're introduced in the books to Tywin Lannister. We've heard of him. But I think it's a pretty cool description here. Tywin Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock and Warden of the West, was in his middle 50s, yet hard as a man of 20. Even seated, he was tall, with long legs, broad shoulders, a flat stomach. His thin arms were corded with muscle. When his once thick golden hair had begun to recede, he had commanded his barber to shave his head. Lord Tywin did not believe in half measures. He razored his lips and chin as well, but kept his side whiskers, two great thickets of wiry golden hair that covered most of his cheeks from ear to jaw. His eyes were a pale green, flecked with gold. A fool more foolish than most had once jested that even Tywin's shit was fleckled with gold. Some said the man was still alive deep in the bowels of Casterly Rock. Sir Kevin Lannister, his father's only surviving brother, was sharing a flagon of ale with Lord Tywin when Tyrion entered the common room. His uncle was portly and balding, with a close-cropped yellow beard that followed the line of his massive jaw. And Sir Kevin sees him first. So they end up just kind of having a conversation. Sorry to disappoint you, Father, Tyrion said. No need to leap up and embrace me. I wouldn't want you to strain yourself. So immediately we're given that Tywin-Tyrion struggle between the two.
Yeah, I mean this is one of those first indications, right? And like it's crazy as we follow along with Tyrion, him having the mountain clans here. It's I don't know. I wonder if things don't go differently for Jaime later. Like, what is Tywin always looking for a way to, I don't know, put his son in harm's way, or what's the deal? Like how much does he dislike him, and how
Right.
much what's I know there's that disdain, but to what degree is he really? Because he's at one point he's willing to put him in harm's way, and at the other he wants him to be hand of the king. So it's just it's crazy.
I wonder. It's so hard to tell with Tywin Lannister because there's the scene in the show where Cersei is talking to Tywin and she says, "You don't know, like the rumors are true." Right? This is when she's having her her struggle with him when he's telling her about, you're going to marry Loras Tyrell.
Mm-hmm.
So the question becomes, because we don't really ever know, did Tywin know? I would have to say yes. I would feel like Tywin Lannister would have to know whether he wants to refuse to believe it or not. Because you have to start thinking, what is actually his plan? Was his plan for Robert Baratheon to die? Because how else would the Lannister name have carried on? Mm-hmm. If not through Tyrion, I'm sure he would have had to have some sort of contingency plan to keep his claim to the Lannister seat.
Oh, I see.
Going forward with Jaime being part of the Kingsguard.
Right, and that he's so upset about that. You're right, because they're Baratheons. Yeah, and that's the how do you keep that Lannister, even though it's Lannister blood, but they're in a position of being the next royals, all of his grandsons, right? But they're Baratheons. So yeah, what I wonder if that did kind of. We know that he was upset when the Mad King took Jaime Lannister into his service, but yeah, I mean, if Tyrion can do his thing, I don't know. I mean, there's it can continue through Tyrion.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't happen. We don't see Tyrion have children, but
I mean, he wanted to. The whole sad story is that like he was married.
Mm-hmm. It just seems odd to me that Tywin would put Tyrion in harm's way now,
mm-hmm.
when
he doesn't have that
Jaime's
setup, yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, at this point, though, he does know that Robert Baratheon's dead and Joffrey is now king, so
mm-hmm.
it is possible.
Oh, you think maybe? Okay, so maybe there's an uptick in putting his son at risk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, perhaps. Mm-hmm. Well, and
yeah.
I mean, now that Robert is out and you have his own flesh and blood kind of sitting there as king, they could do things like Tywin wanted to kind of send Jaime back to the Rock and have him. The king can dismiss him from his service, or could pardon him from, or whatever, release him from his vow, if you will. That's maybe something Robert Baratheon wouldn't do, I would think. So,
yeah. Okay. Okay. So going forward, let's see. So they start to have a conversation,
mm-hmm.
and I really like this. Kind of you to go to war for me, Tyrion says. He said as he climbed up into a chair and helped himself to a cup of his father's wines. By my lights, it was you who started this, Lord Tywin. Your brother Jaime would never have meekly submitted to the capture at the hands of a woman. That's one way we differ, Jaime and I. He's taller as well, as you may have noticed.
Yeah.
But so I do think it's funny. It is Tyrion's. All this did start because of Tyrion. He's the one who does get captured at the end of the crossroads.
Sure. Yeah.
By Catelyn Stark or Catelyn Tully, either way. And Your brother Jaime would never have meekly submitted to the capture at the hands of a woman, which is just a funny line because later his captor is Brienne of Tarth as she's carrying him around.
Yeah. It's the meekly part too. It's sort of like, what's he supposed to do? It's just another way for him to mock Tyrion, and it's it's a jape. It's a jape at Tyrion.
Right. Goes on. Hear me roar, Tyrion said, grinning. The Lannister words. Truth be told, none of my blood was actually shed, although it was a close thing once or twice. Morik and Jick were killed. I suppose you'll be wanting some new men. Don't trouble yourself, father. I've acquired a few of my own.
Right. Quite a few. Quite a few. Yeah. And actually, Bronn being it's Bronn's worth 2 to 3 of those Lannister men that were with him, and he's figured that out.
And he talks about Bronn a little bit and about how Bronn's allegiance has changed 2 or 3 times since he's met.
Yeah. Right.
And so they're having a conversation, and eventually one of the clansmen will burst in the room, but until then, a couple more things I have highlighted here. Things had gotten interesting while he'd been away, Tyrion reflected. And what is this fearless monarch doing whilst all the butcher's work is being done, he wondered. How has my lovely and persuasive sister gotten Robert to agree to the imprisonment of his dear friend Ned? Robert Baratheon is dead, his father told him. Your nephew reigns in King's Landing. That did take Tyrion back. My sister, you mean, is the one who's ruling.
Yeah. It's amazing how he doesn't necessarily know everything that's happened because of his capture and being up in the sky cells and stuff. But one thing I wanted to go back to is that Tywin does go to war because of this. Is it really about Tyrion, as he says, and I'm sorry I'm backing up here, but I'm wondering, is it because of the name Lannister is at stake and he has to do something, or is this an opportunity that he's been waiting for? Like was he planning for something and this comes along and okay, now we're going to go out. I just kind of wonder whether it was more.
It's interesting because again, as we talk about perspective, we do not see the perspective from Tywin Lannister in the books or the show about this war. And when it starts, because it starts roughly the same time as Ned Stark is imprisoned. So it's difficult to say, did he do it because of Tyrion? My guess would be yes.
Yeah. That's what he says, but
it's what he says, and there's rumblings of him gathering men beforehand, but it's just everything kind of all of these pieces kind of take place right at once. And so if Tywin were to figure out that he is alive, well, Robb Stark's already declared war essentially, but if you were to have known earlier, it is possible word travels relatively fast. Is it possible, as you said, that he sees this position as a position to possibly take out some Stark men, and gain favor in the North?
Yeah. And it's also like the key. We were just talking about Robert's death and them not knowing it is everything perfect storm happening, right? So the opportunities are all there, and if Eddard is not necessarily out of the way, but imprisoned or what have you, then you're facing down a young wolf. You're facing down this untested boy from the North who you think you can beat if you're Tywin, right? So, yeah, I think it's opportunity, and the Lannister name is at
stake.
Is at stake, yeah.
Okay, so next point here. This is especially for you, Sir Ezra. Tyrion made a tisking sound. The gall of them fighting back. Ordinarily, I'd be glad to punish such rudeness, father, but the truth is, I have pressing business elsewhere. Do you? Lord Tywin did not seem odd. We also have a pair of Ned Stark's afterthoughts making a nuisance of themselves by harassing my foraging parties. Beric Dondarrion, some young lordling with delusions of valor. He has that fat jape of a priest with him, the one who likes to set his sword on fire. Do you think you might be able to deal with them as you scamper off without making too much of a botch of it.
I mean, there he is, friends. Beric Dondarrion outdoing the, just following through. I mean, this is what, Eddard Stark's command. The king sent him out after the mountain to bring him to justice, and he's still out there, just doing his thing. It's fantastic, and this is the forming of the Brotherhood without banners, and it's gonna grow.
And this is how in the books you hear of these tales, and a lot of things are actually told to us this way in the books, is hearsay. Sure. And that a lot of how we hear about Beric Dondarrion is, well, we heard Beric Dondarrion later. We heard he died here. No, we heard he died here. No,
right,
I heard
right.
he died here. And there's truth to all of those.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is.
and this is kind of how it begins. This Beric Dondarrion guy is out fighting, and so that's
with
how
the Red Priest. Yeah.
Yeah, as we go forward, we'll hear more of those. We heard of Beric Dondarrion won another battle, or he died here. So that's just how it going forward. We'll have similar scenes.
Yeah.
Okay, so then Tyrion starts talking to Tywin again, telling him what he needs. He needs armaments for his men. And as he's requesting these things, the door behind him opened with a crash so violently that Tyrion almost dropped his cheese. Sir Kevin leapt up swearing as the captain of the guard went flying across the room to smash against the hearth. As he tumbled down into the cold ashes, his lion helm askew, Shagga snapped the man's sword in two over a knee thick as a tree trunk, threw down the pieces, and lumbered into the common room. He was preceded by his stench, riper than the cheese and overpowering in closed space. Little red cape, he snarled, when next you bear steel on Shagga, son of Dolph, I will chop off your manhood and roast it in the fire. And so that's essentially really how this chapter in a way kind of ends. Is they come in, they kind of demand essentially what they're owed, which is weapons and things like that, and Tywin offers them the opportunity to fight for them, and he promises them more to it, and that's how Tyrion aids what will be this battle that's about to happen.
Yeah. I mean, a Lannister always pays his debts, right? And he was able to talk his way out of they were going to kill him back in the Vale, and he talks so he's got to fulfill this promise and give them weapons and armor and different things like that. Remember earlier on too, they were concerned about their horses, not wanting to give their horses up and stuff. They're just such a strange, backward group, and it's bizarre to see them. They're almost like, we said this before, kind of like wildlings, really. They're wildlings.
They are the hill tribes or the clansmen. They're very much like wildlings, and that's how a lot of the people view them.
Yeah. They're just
essentially as wildlings,
right? Because even among them, they have different clans and different things. It's like a smaller version of the.
They
wildlings.
seem almost less civilized than wildlings. We seem to meet far more civilized wildlings.
Yeah, the mountain clans are pretty. They're pretty crazy. I mean,
yeah.
So you've got what's cool is we've got two different factions too. Don't forget, we've got the northern mountain clans and we've got the Vale mountain clans. Because you still have some pretty wild and crazy people in the northern mountain clans as well, which we'll get. That's books away. But the Vale mountain clans, man. Their culture is just it's backwards. They still at least understand the system of the Seven Kingdoms and respects owed to. They know how I guess the system operates, if you will, but they believe that every person's voice is important regardless of gender, which is interesting during their councils. So that's kind of unique. Women, men doesn't really matter. So that's whereas in our Seven Kingdoms system, it's men rule and women do not. But ironically, in the mountain clans, it doesn't matter. Kind of the same with the wildlings. So just different. They're poor people, poor quality of weapons and armor. They raid villages and things, but yeah, they also will cut your manhood off, and they'll eat it. They'll fry it. They'll eat it. They'll kill.
And they keep track of the amount of ears they take.
Yeah, that's another crazy.
There is one last line I want to bring up here. When Tyrion is introducing them, may I present my lord father, Tywin, son of Tydos of House Lannister, lord of Casterly Rock, warden of the West, shield of Lannisport, and once and future hand of the king. Lord Tywin rose, dignified and correct. Even in the West, we know the prowess of the warrior clans of the Mountains of the Moon. What brings you down from the strongholds, my lords? And then they just say horses. But it's even in a position where he's talking to people that are obviously inferior to him, Tywin Lannister still plays the game as he's one of the best Game of Thrones players. And so it's just another cool scene with him where he gives these people the time of day.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Because he could have, I mean, he's smart enough to know, hey, these are guys who I'm going to put on the front line and not waste my men.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if he wanted to, he could easily kill all 300 of these guys and say, all right, enough of that.
Right. Exactly. Now, here's something interesting, just some history on the Vale Mountain clans. So during the Andal invasion of Westeros, Andals from Essos, right? They come over, they conquered the Vale of Arryn. From the First Men. So they took it from the First Men. Well, some of the First Men submitted to and intermarried with the Andals, and that was the big thing. The Andals kind of figured out that, we'll marry with the First Men and kind of get our seed in there, and that's how we'll kind of part of their takeover. So, so they married with the Andals in the aftermath of the Battle of Seven Stars, but others refused to kneel. The First Men who fled from the fertile Vale proper into the Mountains of the Moon and are the ancestors of the modern clansmen. So they're those First Men who chose kind of not to intermarry with the Andals and things. So there's always that claiming blood or descendancy from the First Men, which I think is something that a lot of people want to make a claim towards. And the mountain clans from the Mountains of the Moon, they can make that claim pretty much. So
yeah.
Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that is our reread for the week. We have a couple of Ravens to get into here, Sir Ezra. So I'm just going to go ahead and dive in. We're still talking, I think, season 8.
Yeah.
Is where we're getting a lot of these Ravens from. So this is Lady Selena of House Beer. I hope I'm pronouncing both your first name and last name correct. That's what it looks like to me.
That's awesome.
Dear Sir Ezra the Watchful and Sir Matt the Bud Knight, thank you for the podcast discussions and taking in so many fan theories. In my world of people who don't want to discuss theories, this was totally my escape. Much appreciated. I felt similarly to you that I didn't find the final episode bad per se, but I'm definitely feeling underwhelmed. With all of the airtime dedicated to Tyrion walking into the dungeons, talking to Jon, and the end of the epilogue, it felt like there was a lot of room to do more here. I'm writing to you to ask about Varys' ravens he allegedly sent. Do you think those never made it out of Dragonstone? During the High Council / trial of Tyrion, did the lords and ladies know the truth? Neither Tyrion, Sansa, Arya, or Bran gave any indication that Jon should be king. In turn, Bran takes the throne, Sansa rules the north, Arya becomes captain of her own exploration ship, and Jon's position in exile seems to be some sort of leadership role. Is it just me, or did the Starks just take over the world here? Was this foreseen by Bran as the best way to retain power for his house? Do we think the Starks feel like they've avenged their lost family members? Just a thought, as it was an interesting coincidence that all the power in Westeros, and possibly west of Westeros, depending on Arya's motivation for exploration, is now under the Stark rule. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. It's been a great ride with the show, and now I'm turning to the books. Cheers, Lady Selena of House Beer.
Yeah, Lady Selena. Wow, that's awesome. So I just want to get something straight before I respond to this. When Jon is turned over, he's imprisoned by Grey Worm, but one of the things that Grey Worm wants to, he's supposed to stand trial, and they're gonna kill him. I mean, didn't he not lead like a mini I guess he didn't really lead like a mini rebellion there. I don't know. It's they call this great council, and you feel like they could do anything, couldn't they? They could pardon Jon, but they don't, because Grey Worm won't have it, and they don't want more conflict with the Unsullied, right? So that's what were your thoughts on that, sir, man? I just want to get that straight, I guess, in my mind.
Yeah, so it seemed like Grey Worm has an army of Unsullied standing out and probably in King's Landing, and he's demanding justice. And if he doesn't get it, then more people could die.
Gotcha.
And probably all tired, all people that are all very tired, the remaining people of King's Landing. They don't, because it happens so fast, it's hard to really portray it in a way that makes it seem serious, I guess.
Like the threat,
to give that threat and weight to it.
Right.
But yeah, once Grey Worm and the Dothraki sail back across the narrow sea, I would find it hard to believe that, one, they would ever return, considering how difficult it was to get them to cross in the first place, and the Dothraki never crossed the sea until Daenerys Targaryen. So I think that's where people have some of that issue with that. Is we definitely had ravens, and actually I think we actually have one right here. I'm just going to go ahead and read this because it kind of ties in as well. So this is from Lady Amanda. Hi guys, just started listening to the podcast right before season 8 started. Just wanted to say I'm confused about what everyone thinks Jon was sent to the Night's Watch. I mean, yes, that's what they say, but do people really think that wasn't his sibling's scapegoat to make sure he gets to live north of the Wall? I think he's going to be the new king beyond the Wall, or simply a wildling free to do as he pleases. Thanks for the great podcast. So, exactly. I think Lady Amanda kind of hits it right on the head there. Is Jon's punishment to the Wall isn't really a punishment. There's not really a Night's Watch, which is what he even says. What is left to fight? So Jon basically just gets to go north and live free, essentially.
Yeah, he's in service to the Night's Watch. But yeah, like I think one of the other mentions there from Lady Amanda is that Sansa could see him. From time to time, Benjen would come down and see his brother and his nieces and nephews in Winterfell, and he's in the Night's Watch. So yeah, there is more of a freedom there. He just has to be in service to the Night's Watch and do his duty. But
the other thing I think is that, so who controls the Wall and beyond at this point? Is the king still in charge of the Wall? Because the North is now an independent.
Oh, that's a good point.
Nation.
That's a good point.
With the North being an independent nation, I find it hard to believe that they would say, "Well, we control the Wall, this one area just north of this independent nation that is as large as our now 6 kingdoms."
Yeah, right.
So,
well,
I can't imagine that they would still have any say over it. There is also an enormous hole in the Wall. So right. Again, I think it's also possible that Bran, being able to see everything he can see, would understand that, okay, with this enormous hole in the Wall that we're probably not going to rebuild, considering the North now is the thing standing between us and that, it would be kind of up to the North to take care of. And so the best thing to do would be send a Jon Snow who can lead them and make them a much more civilized people, to where they don't need to ride south and raid anymore. And there's no longer a threat. There's no longer a threat of the White Walkers. So,
right, yeah,
and we see the grass growing. So it is possible that all that winter and stuff isn't going to be there anymore. We know that it's possible the land of winter didn't exist until the Children of the Forest created the White Walkers. Even if you go back to a world of ice and fire, the Dawn Age, it's kind of unclear, because we know that the land of always winter comes. It's mentioned after we talk about the Children of the Forest and the giants. So it is entirely possible that when they created the White Walkers, in the show, when they show the scene of when the Night King is being created, it's in a grassy field, and then it's the same spot that we see much later, and it's all covered in ice and snow. So what I'm saying is that it's possible that the winter and all the snow is over time going to go away, because it was possible that it was the White Walkers who were the ones controlling the fact that there was snow there. When you watch the scene where the White Walker is created, the Night King is created. Mm-hmm. He's created in a grassy field, and then they show that spot later, and it's all covered in ice and snow.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And I think that's what that where you see that seed of grass, right? Just the one little blade of grass, or the plant, when John's riding by, is to show you, oh no, it's gonna grow and be different here.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean that. Right. So back though then to, like, at this council, why at some point, if Jon is who he is, the Targaryen that he is, do they not bring him back or free him from his exile, I guess? Or, you know what I mean? Like, is there not another way to get around that?
Well, when you've got Grey Worm standing there saying you need to decide to do something, I think the last thing they could go with would be to choose Jon as king.
We get, sure. I just mean after the fact. Like is maybe, you know, do you do something afterwards? I get saying, well, we're going to, I don't know, because once he sails away, I guess it's like, you know, honor, going back on your word, that kind of thing, not wanting to upset them if they hear, well, Jon's free running around. And
well, that you also have, you have opposing sides at that council, remember? Mm-hmm. Yara is not very happy that they killed Daenerys.
True, that's true. Yep.
So it's not just the Unsullied. There's also lords of Westeros who are not pleased with Jon's actions as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's a good
and
point.
They willingly choose Bran as a group to then just turn it over to Jon. Mm-hmm. I don't think would be a guy who doesn't even want it anyway.
Well, yeah, I don't even mean just turn it over to him as king. I didn't really mean that. I just meant like
you just mean you go to cancel his air quote punishment.
Well, when you go to the Wall, I mean, you can't have children. You can't, you know what I mean? You're not supposed to father any children. I don't know we don't even know if the vows are also the same, but how does that Targaryen line continue? Is my
question.
Might not.
Yeah,
it might not. It ends with him. He's the last, I guess. So it just made me think that you would be, as a great council, you would be thinking about that. Maybe you don't want the Targaryens. Maybe you just do want him to go away and be in that to be the end. So he ends up like an Aemon Targaryen, you know, an Aemon, Maester Aemon, years, you know, super old, who knows, up at the Wall or something. But I don't know. I just thought there's something to him being the last Targaryen that we know of, and it's odd that we wouldn't do something else to kind of keep to punish him in some way. I don't know.
Well,
bring him back.
And like, you know, this is with the books. You know, we're speculating. We have to speculate at this point about what we saw in the show, and will it play into when we think about will it play into the books. Mm-hmm. Because I think they got a very abridged version of Gur's plan.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's possible you and I know from being book readers, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners do, and for this you new people, one of the characters we're going to be talking about in our show Watcher's Guide to the Books is a character named Val, who it seems very likely that Jon Snow's about to have a relationship with, another wildling woman who a lot of people theorize may even be a Targaryen herself. There may be some Targaryen blood there because she has very distinctive features.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like kind of a blonde hair. So. Yeah, I mean that's a big theory, right? Is Val a Targaryen? But it does at least seem like there's about to be a Jon-Val relationship of some sort. So, what if Val in the books is still north of the Wall, and Jon getting sent to north of the Wall means he has a relationship with her?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be kind of one of. Well, and again, even in the show, regardless if he does just become king beyond the Wall, I mean, then he just foregoes his vows and says, I'm going to turn into the second Mance Raider and I'll have kids and the Targaryen. It's just ice dragons now. Now they're ice dragons north of the wall.
Right.
So yeah, that could still happen. And you're right. I mean, it's definitely in the books. I think we're going to have more Targaryen players and bastard Targaryens and all that stuff possibly.
Right.
So we're still theorizing anyways about all of that. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's we have one last Raven here since I kind of read Lady Amanda's during Lady Selena's. Kiera Trey. Hey, quick follow-up for Follow-Up Friday, but now we're just putting him at the end of our reread here. Been listening to your podcast, still trying to catch up, and just got done listening to the Young Griff versus Jon Snow for episode we did on Follow-Up Friday. Was wondering your thoughts on a possibility that Jon Snow is a Targaryen, and so is young Griff, and maybe the three heads of the dragon are Jon, Dany, and Griff. Thanks again. So that's in the books.
Right.
Will we see Jon, young Griff, and Dany come together?
Yeah. So possibly. Let me think here. So the idea that Jon and young Griff are both Targaryens. The thing that when Quaithe says to beware like the Mummer's dragon, we've always kind of wondered who that false dragon is, and it seems to be young Griff. There's other candidates as well, but yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of, that would be interesting. I guess if they both were Targaryens, you'd have to ask yourself which. So if he really is Aegon Targaryen, he's Rhaegar's son. If young Griff is that, then Jon is also his Rhaegar's son, but just through Lyanna, if that makes sense. And I believe that young Griff is kind of ID'd as being a bit older in the books. Correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, it's possible. It's certainly possible.
They don't really say. It's based on what Tyrion, just his description of him and the way he looks, seems like he might be slightly older, and that would be necessary. That would be necessary if young Griff were Aegon Targaryen, and then Jon would be what we believe is Jaehaerys, right? Jaehaerys Targaryen, perhaps, or something. Right. Born to Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen. So yeah, that could be the case. There could be three heads to the dragon in that way. I think Jon's heritage will be revealed closer to the end. Maybe. I mean, my big question has been, after I've seen the show, like, what's the point of his, him being a Targaryen? I don't know. It's so
well going. I'd say going off the show. I think the point would be to cause, if it goes down similarly, to cause a rift between Jon and Dany.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, one of the things we talk about is, but with the difference between the books and the show is a lot of characters are merged, a lot of storylines are blended together. Since there's so many characters that just aren't introduced from the books, and it is entirely possible that Jon and Dany don't romantically get involved.
Right.
And it's possible that young Griff and Dany do, or young Griff and Dany fight each other.
Well,
I'm starting to wonder about the whole three heads of the dragon thing. If we assume things from the show happen in the books,
mm-hmm.
and think that it may be another one of these situations where a prophecy is wrong,
mm-hmm.
that the three heads of the dragon doesn't necessarily coincide with the Azor Ahai prophecy, and that they're two different things.
Mm-hmm.
The prince or princess, perhaps, who was promised. If it does end up being Dany, then the Azor Ahai and the three heads of the dragon are two different prophecies. A lot of people think they go together. But they're two different things.
Yeah.
Because Dany does have three dragons, and three heads to her being a dragon. And so it's possible, what if that isn't actually a Azor Ahai prophecy and the ultimate enemy? If it does come down similarly in the books, that it comes down to Dany versus Jon.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Okay.
so or perhaps you can look at it if that with Drogon melting the Iron Throne, Drogon is you go that route too, where Dany is Azor Ahai. She forges Lightbringer, and Lightbringer is Drogon, which we've talked about. We've had people send us theories about that as well. And Drogon destroys the Iron Throne, thus breaking the wheel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to come back to the whole three heads of the dragon. That's there's a lot to that, and as you say, Sir Matt, there's kind of, do we separate that from,
right?
Is it its own thing? How is it interworked with the other prophecies? Is a little bit complex,
because Azor Ahai exists well before the original Azor Ahai exists way before. During the original battle against the White Walkers, where they push them back, and thinking about that, I'm starting to think I don't think they defeated the White Walkers. I think they just pushed them back, and then the wall was built after that.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I'm starting to think, because I think that's how I think you do have to, in the story, defeat them, and I think that's what happened. I think the Night King was defeated. I think that they somehow pushed them back before, and then the wall was built. It's the World of Ice and Fire book is so, you really got to take a lot of it as a grain of salt. I mean, there are certain chapters where it contradicts itself, right, with the tellings of Maester Yandel and Mushroom, and then it's contradicting itself. So that's always been a thing about that book and the history. So it is possible that the wall was built in response to them pushing back the White Walkers. That doesn't mean they defeated them. So if that's the case, then the whole Azor Ahai, three heads of the dragon thing, totally two different things. They could be together. I think so many people want it to work together because we all believe that Jon Snow is Azor Ahai, and it just, so we've heard of this prophecy too, and we're kind of pushing them together because it makes the most sense.
Right. Yeah, and just for summary here, because again, we are trying to be conscious of folks who are coming from just watching the show and then coming into the books a little bit here. So in the House of the Undying, Dany sees several scenes, right? So which appear to be from the past, some from the present, some from the future. And there's some graphic stuff. There could be some visions of maybe the Red Wedding, etc. But she does glimpse in the fourth room, when she goes into the fourth room, there appears to have shown her Aerys just before his death and the sack of King's Landing. The fifth room finally shows a man very much alike her brother Viserys, except that he is taller and has eyes of dark indigo rather than lilac. He is speaking to a woman who is nursing a newborn babe, telling her that the child's name should be Aegon, and saying that what better name for a king? The woman asks if he will make a song for the child, and he replies that he has a song and that he is the prince that was promised, and his is the song of ice and fire. He appears to look at Dany then as if seeing her, and then he adds that there must be one more, and the dragon has 3 heads. So who is that third head? So you had Rhaegar names his children, right? You've got Rhaenys, Aegon, and then I'm guessing hoping he would have a daughter, maybe Visenya, right?
It's possible, yeah.
Possible. So clearly this vision revealed that Rhaegar saw his children as the fulfillment of the prophecy, especially when you realize that he's named his kids after Aegon the Conqueror and his sisters, or that he was attempting to. So, so Dany later comments that there having been no Visenya, so she seems to have understood Rhaegar's expectation of a second daughter. The prophecies of the prince who was promised seem to tie directly to the prophecy concerning Azor Ahai and the coming of a dark time, which Melisandre speaks of often, all the time. Maester Aemon reveals that Rhaegar at first believed he was the promised prince due to the burning of Summerhall on the day of his birth and the salt of the tears for those who had died there, but that he then became convinced that it was his son Aegon who would fulfill the prophecy. Most importantly, Rhaegar reiterates the idea that the dragon has 3 heads. If true prophecies must be fulfilled, and not all readers agree that this is the case, which is right. So a lot of these prophecies and things that we, even from the show, like, we're kind of like underwhelmed a little bit by some of this. It seems that Daenerys must be one of those heads. You know, Aemon, when he's talking about, is it prince or is it princess? Did we misread that? There are some people who think that Dany is not necessarily the Mad King's daughter. So there are theories. Trust me, they're out there. They're on Reddit.
Daughter.
Yeah, exactly. Which is interesting. And if that's the case, then yeah, if Aegon did survive and it's sort of like you could have 2 boys and 1 girl. Yeah, it's just going to be a little different. I was under the impression that Rhaenys might have been the Sphinx for a while until George Martin kind of came out and said that no, she really did die. And I'm like, are you lying to us? Maybe she is Cirilla Sand or something.
That's possible.
So, anyways, yeah, I don't know. Martin stated that Rhaenys is definitely dead. So he said that, but also that the 3 heads need not be Targaryens. So he stated that before. That was in the same. So when he was talking about Rhaenys and saying that she was definitely dead, he also said that the 3 heads need not be Targaryens, which is interesting that he would. That's one of those so spake Martin type of things that come up every so now and again. So I don't know. So there's some strong contenders out there for the 3 heads of the dragon. Jon and so the sons of Rhaegar and Lyanna, or simply just Ned Stark's bastard, depending on which one he is. Aegon Targaryen, young Griff, Tyrion Lannister has been brought up. A lot of different things. But yeah, I just wanted people to kind of understand that it was Rhaegar, and it was sort of this House of the Undying where that vision or that prophecy kind of comes up. And so we'll get there. Eventually in the book club.
Yep.
But man, it's confusing because why do you tie the 2 together, Azor Ahai, and because Azor Ahai is how like the Targaryens had nothing, as far as we know, to do with the raising of the wall and the long night. That was thousands of years.
Right.
Before.
There's also the last hero. Right.
Yeah, the last hero
is
exactly.
another possible telling of it. So, we.
Go ahead.
We may need to do another, especially as the prequel coming out. That's going to change, I think, a lot of stuff. And provide another telling of that stuff in the World of Ice and Fire. It's a companion book for those of you guys who don't we've mentioned it a couple times, don't know what we're talking about. It's a companion book. I highly recommend picking it up. It's really good. It has a really cool artwork. It's worth the like $30. I think it will cost you on Amazon.
Yep.
But it's a huge history of the world of Ice and Fire, and it goes all the way back to like when things were the early times. And so we pull a lot from this. I think it's like the 2nd chapter called The Long Night.
Yep.
And it's about 2 pages, and it's very vague, and it tells about when the White Walkers were originally defeated or pushed back, and that's where we kind of hear this Azor Ahai character name. And for the longest time he comes up again in the 2nd book, Clash of Kings, and that's where Melisandre thinks it's Stannis Baratheon. He's going to be the one to lead us against the darkness, air quote. He pulls from the fire a sword Lightbringer, and this is all far more prevalent and brought up in the books than it really is in the show.
Yeah. It's just we'll probably have to do another, as you say, another episode just on how all the prophecies. What are all the prophecies, and what are how are they kind of put together? How do they weave together, and how some we should keep separate?
This is stuff definitely check out our upcoming a show watcher's guide to the books. So it'll be a kind of a crash course, if you will, into a lot of the things that are different in the books. I would say easily one of the biggest thing is magic and prophecies are far more prevalent in the books. And I think that's why we've talked about it, is the show is a Game of Thrones, and that's their focus point. And the books series is A Song of Ice and Fire.
Absolutely, my friend.
So, all right, Sir Ezra. Well, I think that brings us to about the end of our show today. We want to thank a few people here: Lady Mary, Lady Hannah of House Flynn, and Sir Anthony of House Vin, who supported us on Ko-fi. It's another way to kind of support the show, even if you aren't necessarily interested in a monthly subscription on Patreon. We really, really appreciate that. And continue to send us our ravens. We'll keep going through a couple of those towards the end of our reread episodes here. We have a ton more content coming out on Patreon, and continue the reread.
Yep, it's gonna be exciting. Yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to it, and I'm really looking forward to getting through just Game of Thrones, getting into the next book, because it really picks up.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be there. I think we mapped it out about September. This when we dive into a Clash of Kings.
Yeah.
So, all right, everyone. Well, we want to thank you for playing the Game of Thrones. In our next episode, we will be discussing Chapter 57, Sansa 5.
If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com.
We will see you in a week, and remember that winter is coming.